We had Congressman Barney Frank on the show a couple of months ago, and financial reform has been something of not a pet project, but a big concern to him. Would you support any financial reform bill that clears the Senate, or are there certain provisions that would just absolutely be off the table for you?
Well, for the moment, there isn't anything in that legislation that's off the table, and I think that the House bill that Barney helped to author is a good starting point in this discussion, and I certainly prefer the House bill, but we're going to have some sort of financial regulation here I hope, by Memorial Day, and I don't think that I ought to be so narrow as to suggest that if there's one or two items that I don't like, that I'm going to oppose what I think is a very important legislative opportunity here. And let me go so far as to say, it can't be on Wall Street heads they win and tails they win. But if we're to socialize risk and privatize gain, it strikes me that the taxpayer will always be the backstop for unnecessary risk-taking, or as it's known, moral hazard.
I know I can understand not wanting to say anything in particular is going to be off the table, but there have to be some provisions that would just make you say, you know what, I can't go with that, right?
Look, but what you do is you generally embrace a legislative package based upon a number of things, and if you always start from the premise that I can't vote for this because it lacks perfection, then you reject the notion of possibility. And I think in this instance here, you have a process called the regular order. It's gone on for months and months and months. You've sought and heard every conceivable opportunity for testimony from those who are involved directly and indirectly in the process. And you also have to speak to the voter outrage that is currently very palpable across the country as to what happened on Wall Street. Now, I'm not suggesting for one second that we embrace punitive action as much as I am suggesting that you embrace greater transparency. You don't want to kill innovation and creativity, but at the same time, you don't want the American taxpayer put on the hook for unnecessary risk-taking.
In the last couple of minutes we have here, you're Roman Catholic. What's your initial reaction to the incredible amount of abuse news that we're hearing from the Vatican? Now it seems the Pope may have been or really was involved in covering it up or preventing discipline for the abusers. What's your reaction?
Well, I don't expect that the listener believes that I ought to be the spokesperson for my religion.
Absolutely
and at the same time, I think that this has been handled very badly. And I think that the latest edict that we've witnessed was one that should have been embraced early on, and that is if you have knowledge of criminal activity, then you ought to turn it over to the proper authority. I think that should have been embraced decades ago, as opposed to what we've seen in terms of the pattern that has been unearthed. And there can be no excuse for what has happened to some of these young children. And I think that everybody is upset across the board, whether you share that particular religion that I have or not.
And the idea
I think that everybody ought to be furious about what's happened.
And the idea that there may be individuals within the church that are in some way off limits, that from legal persecution, that doesn't ring true to you, does it?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think that the law is the law, and it ought to be subscribed to in these instances fully. I've watched and listened to some of the testimony from some of these young kids, and my heart bleeds for what's happened. I feel so badly about it for those individuals and their families.
We've been speaking with Congressman Richard Neal. I think you may have a real election on your hands this year, I'll tell you.
We'll see.
We have just a couple seconds left. As a current resident, former mayor of Springfield, what can we do right away? And Police Officer Michael Carney is here in studio to crack down on violent crimes in the city of Springfield.
Well, I think these are attending issues, and I think the difficulty is trying to get to them when the young person is 15 or 16 years old. I think that makes it much more difficult. I think trying to have early intervention is where we need to be, and I think that there needs to be family support for services. I think that there needs to be an acknowledgement that there are some kids that present a real danger even at an early stage of life. And one of the consistent patterns that you witness here is this wanton violence. It strikes me as though it's not very well planned. It tends to take place on street corners, random shootings, and if there are people that are hit innocently, there seems to be very little regret. So I think there's a pattern here of social misbehavior that needs to be addressed and embraced at a much earlier stage than when we have these kids getting to 15 or 16 years old. There is nothing that has done more to damage the reputation of urban living than the issue of street crime and violent crime.
And certainly here in the Springfield area, we know that. Congressman Richard Neal, thank you so much for calling in today.
Great to talk to you, David.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. And Michael Carney as well. We will have you back
Thanks,
soon.
David.
Be
Bye,
well.
Congressman.
You've been listening to Midweek Politics with Dave Pakman.
Midweek Politics is brought to you in part by Jackson & Connor, classically modern men's apparel in Northampton, Massachusetts on the second floor of Thorne's Marketplace, and by DIF Design, specializing in custom business websites at difdesign.com. To find out more about underwriting Midweek Politics, visit midweekpolitics.com.